Hey, Ohio, welcome once again to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. I'm Spike Spangle. Tim, what is on your mind this week when it comes to retirement?
Well, we're going to talk about the 20 most important retirement planning questions to ask yourself.
Wait a second. You know that we have a 28-minute show here on TV. You think we're going to get to 20 of them?
Can we not get to 20?
I think we're going to carry some of these over, folks.
This may be a 2 or 3 part series, Spike.
Could be one of our famous two-show series.
We've had 3 show
That's
series
right.
before. So
20 of the most important retirement planning questions, and we want you as our viewers to be thinking about it yourself at home. These are the kinds of things that Tim will take you through in the office, but we wanted to open up the curtain and show exactly what the process is like when you come in, when you do your own retirement blueprint. And I guess I want to know if it starts out with number 1 of when do you want to retire?
that is the first question. And here's the interesting thing with that, Spike. We ask that obviously to every person that comes in who is not already retired. And it used to be a very definitive answer. When I turn 65, I want to be done. When I turn 67, that's when I can, have that full retirement age for Social Security. We're not hearing that anymore. We're hearing, I don't know. I don't know. And that's, we've talked about this on previous shows and on radio, that people are not doing a hard stop on retirement anymore. They're looking at retirement as a slow transition. And I love that.
A gradual
I love
shift.
the answer of, I don't know. If you asked me that, I would tell you, Spike, I don't know. I love what I do.
I was going to say, you asked me the same question,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't know. I don't know. As long as I can do it, as long as I feel like I'm contributing, as long as I feel that I'm competitive, as long as I've got an edge of what's going on. I like the sense of what we do in helping people. And if there are folks out there who enjoy their career or they've built their own private business, they like what they're doing and contributing, we don't know exactly when we want to retire.
And I'll tell you when that transition happened, Spike. When we transitioned from the pension generation to the 401k generation, it changed the attitude. It changed the way we think about retirement, because it used to be that slow grind. I got to stay here for 30 years. When I get to 30 years, there's really no reason for me to continue working because they're going to give me a check for not working. Today, I don't have that mandate. I'm not searching for that end game. It really is up to me. As long as I'm enjoying it, if I'm having fun, it goes back to my definition of retirement in the first place, and that is when I go to work because I choose to, not because I have to.
Okay. Now, on the when do you want to retire, are you finding that it's harder for folks to do the retiring early, a 62, 63, 64? Now, again, those with pensions, sometimes if you were a career in safety, if you had a badge and a weapon, retiring at 58 or 59 is actually retiring on time. But you could be in retirement for 35 some years.
Right.
Is it possible in the private sector to save enough and be retiring early? Are you cautious about people who want to retire early?
I'm cautious, but I don't discourage it. Where I discourage retiring early is when somebody can't tell me exactly what they're going to do in retirement. How are you going to fill your day? Where are you going to get all the things that you enjoyed about working? That camaraderie, working towards a common goal, human interaction, having a purpose. A lot of those things we get from going to the office, or maybe doing it on Zoom today, which means that it's even that much more fun because I just have to wear a nice shirt up top and I can still have my gym shorts on the bottom. Whatever your scenario is, looking at what do you get out of that? Is that something you enjoy? And even for those people who do say, you know what, I'm going to stop doing this, but I'm still interested in doing something. That's a beautiful place to be in your career, because now I have enough money to retire. I can literally do anything I want. So maybe I have interest in running a small business. Maybe I have interest in volunteer work or being on boards, that type of thing. It doesn't have to necessarily be driven by money. A lot of times we're going to work because we need that paycheck. When I no longer need that paycheck, now I'm doing it for fun. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. I'm looking for that thing that gets me up in the morning.
Right. And when, again, they're talking about retiring early, because we know that millennials are our biggest market share out there. They're the ones who are really watching. Millennials today are talking about retiring in their 50s, wanting to be able to retire as soon as possible. But knowing how much it takes to be able to do that. I love that what you're saying is it's lifestyle driven, that we want to be able to do things. So I love that. I want to retire at 62 because I want to live the life. I want to enjoy the life. I don't want to just wait until my body isn't going to let me travel or I can't enjoy doing activities. But having a balance of figuring out how much we need, that probably leads me to my next question on there. How much do we need to retire, Tim? What's the number?
Well, what's interesting is we've actually done shows this year on 3 different numbers because 3 different studies came out. We did one on 1.2, one on 1.4, and I literally just saw one from Charles Schwab, 1.8 million as the price tag. I don't know where they come up with these numbers. I mean, obviously they're survey driven, but the number that you need is the number that you need. It's not an average, it's not a statistic. It's driven by the plan. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know your number, if you don't know where you need to end up, that's really the purpose for coming in and talking to us. Having a retirement blueprint gives you the answers to the questions that maybe you don't know the answers to.
Right.
It allows us to figure out that number, how much you need to save to get to that number, how to tax efficiently get that money back out so you can spend it and keep what you've earned.
When it comes to retirement planning, math wins.
Math wins.
It really does. But what's important, what I remember, back to my high school and college days, is also depends on the inputs. And there's a lot of inputs that folks are not either putting in or not putting in high enough or not aware of. Again, we go to something that we call future value of money. How do we know when we're asking folks that number, how much do you need to retire, what is that spending going to look like? So how do you do the backwards math and how do you kind of show it to folks who come in?
Well, we do the math in today's dollars. And so maybe you're 10 years out from retirement and you say, okay, if I retired today, I need $5,000 a month. Now we're going to do the math on the back end. We're going to do the future value of what $5,000 is 10 years from now. We're also going to look at how do we get that $5,000 out? Because if we're taking that $5,000 out of an IRA or a 401k, there's tax calculations that have to be made. Then it doesn't matter what that number is 10 years from now. We have to figure out what's that number going to be for the next 20 years, 30 years. Because when we're looking at retirement, a lot of times we're looking at 3 decades. That's 2.5 doubling cycles in inflation. Think about that. If I need 40,000 at my end date, that means I need 60, means I need 90,000 by my 30-year point. We have to have a plan in place that has identified those numbers, but also a plan on how are we going to get there.
The sensitive teeter-totter, though, that we're looking at is that when people get to retirement, you don't want to have so much exposure to the markets, as we saw in something like 2008, where people lost 20, 30, 40% of their retirement account values and then needed to withdraw money. So we want to keep exposure away from volatile markets. On the other hand, you need growth.
Correct.
So it's those growth numbers and inflation. Those are the inputs. Tell folks, we're getting a little complicated on numbers. The retirement blueprint, though, we can simplify this for folks.
We can. And what you just described, I know that the viewers at home are like, so I need safety and I need growth. And how do I do that? I'll tell you how you do it. You give jobs to the money. This isn't an asset allocation question of what the mix is. This is what mix we put in the right buckets. So if we have an income need, by definition, that can't have volatility attached to it. It's got to provide income, and it's got to do that for the rest of our lives. Once we figure that out, then we have the money that's left over. That is your growth component. That's what's going to combat inflation. That's what's going to combat taxes. That's what's going to give you that nest egg to go on that cruise that, you know, your spouse said, we can't afford that. Yeah, you can. It's in the extra bucket. We've got that money identified, and it doesn't impact your income.
Get your own retirement blueprint right now. Call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. We have team members standing by who will schedule your appointment. You can claim your own retirement blueprint. Now, this isn't a printable, this isn't a booklet that we hand to you when you walk in the door. This is your process for retirement. Income planning, taxes, estate planning, healthcare choices, all of that and more wrapped up into your retirement blueprint. You can get that started right now, and your retirement blueprint is no cost to our television viewers. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about is how do we create income, and part of that is going to be Social Security. Don't go anywhere. Call the phone number and watch this message on Social Security.
Social Security is easy, right? The question is, should I take it now or later? Well, there are dozens of ways that you can take Social Security if you're single, and hundreds if you're married. You've paid into the system for decades. Don't you want to make sure that you optimize your retirement income? Depending on how you've set up your other retirement accounts, your Social Security could either be tax-free or up to 85% taxable. It's not as simple as it might seem. So give us a call today. Let us uncomplicate Social Security for your retirement. Give us a call at 855-684-3485, or you can scan the QR code below to schedule your complimentary review. You know, one of the things that we're seeing in the office today is people are coming in with statements that are down 15, 20, 30%, and they're still needing that same income withdrawal, which means the percentage they're taking out from their portfolio is now higher, which increases that risk of running out of money in retirement. This is where planning for volatility really comes into play, and it's the biggest shift that we're making for new people coming in our office, trying to help them recover what they've lost, but also make sure that they don't run into that same situation down the road. When you're looking at retirement planning versus pre-retirement planning, that's the difference. One is about accumulation. It's about growing your money over time. Once you get to retirement, it's about distribution, which is a different strategy. At our office, what we focus on is giving jobs to the money. It's making sure that the dollars that we need to produce income have that volatility removed. That allows us to take risk in other areas because we have our income figured out. If volatility has been an issue, if you're looking at your statement right now and it's down 15, 20, 30%, do you know how you're going to get back? Do you know what you're going to do in the future if that happens again? If you don't, sit down with us for a complimentary review. Let us design a retirement blueprint to help you retire and, more importantly, stay retired.
Welcome back. You're here with Tim Lofton, a retirement income specialist of Axum Planning and Wealth. We're going through the most important retirement planning questions you need to ask yourself, so we're asking them out loud. We've got 20 of them. I don't think there's any way we get through all of them.
I don't think so, Spike. We're at like 3.
I know. I know. Maybe we should rapid fire a couple of them.
Right. But this is how Netflix ends up with miniseries, right? It's like, yeah, we've got to have episodes. Like, we can't make a movie on this. There's just not enough time.
Yes, we have so much to get through right now. We started to talk about Social Security. Let's go to that income. The income plan. What are the sources of income? Obviously, we've got our 401ks. There's some few who are out there who made choices in different sectors, government and so forth, that have pensions. Great for them. But a vast majority of Americans don't have these kinds of pensions. How do we create the income plan?
Well, in Dayton, we are definitely different because, you know, we're so close to Wright-Patt Air Force Base. You look down into Cincinnati, you've got a lot of Fortune 100 companies down there that still do have those pensions. And so I think a lot of times we're jaded in our office because we do see more pensions than what the national average says we should. But listen, there's a lot of people out there that don't have a pension. If you were one of those people, if you're in that position and you're like, I don't have a pension, like my company didn't have a pension, I have a 401k, the good news is that because our industry looks at the age of population and our industry wants to make money, they've created products that actually will do exactly that. You can create your own personal pension plan. There's products out there to do that. But regardless of where you fit into that pension conversation, you do have Social Security. But Social Security is not that easy anymore. It's a lifetime decision. And if you and your spouse have Social Security, what is going to be your claiming strategy? When are you going to claim it? Are you going to claim it and still be working? That could be a mistake.
Yeah.
Are you going to claim it and then take half of your spouse's? Wait a minute, Tim, I didn't even know about that one. My point is this is a conversation before you punch that ticket. You should be having that conversation with somebody who specializes in that area of claiming.
We've discussed before what to do in that 6 months to 1 year before retirement, and some of the things you've said are, don't turn on your Social Security, don't turn on your pension plan, don't tell your boss, I'm leaving, until you sit down with somebody and you can actually map out, again, the math wins, Map
Right.
out these mathematical decisions, the turning on the Social Security, not reviewing a pension, just say, oh, I'm going to turn on the most amount for myself. What if you don't do the spousal benefit on a pension plan as well? And then how do you create a pension plan from your own savings? Again, if you're doing the dollar amounts backwards, we need to know exactly how much we need to save in a 401k to turn it into a spending plan. Now, do you have software that'll also help us? Can you visualize this?
We do. Spike, did I ever tell you about the $5,000 a month mistake? Let me tell you about that one. So we had a client in, it was a second marriage, and he was literally getting ready to retire. He was looking at making that selection in his pension, and he looked at it, and basically there was going to be this major difference in what he was going to get by adding his spouse on. And he said, well, that doesn't make sense. That's too much money. Except that if he passed away, her income gap was $5,000 a month, totally solvable by just making her the pension beneficiary in his plan. It was going to cost him $400 a month in income, $4,800 a year to fix a $5,000 a month problem. These are mistakes that we see made all the time. Don't let that happen to you. Sit down with somebody, sit down with us, let us design a retirement blueprint so that you know what that path forward looks like, and more importantly, we can uncover the potential mistakes that could derail your retirement.
Once again, fewer pensions out there, but what are some of the kinds of pensions that you do sometimes see come through the office?
Well, most of the time we see pensions that typically have some type of spousal benefit, but that's not always the case. Another thing that we see different in pensions is sometimes they have a cost of living adjustment and sometimes they're fixed. Understand that if you were in a pension fund that failed, in other words, the government stepped in, they kind of backed up your pension fund, that pension just typically will not grow. Whatever it is, it's static. And that's not necessarily what the pension was designed to do, but that's indeed what you inherited.
Is Accident Planning and Wealth also familiar with the federal benefits program? Because I know
Yes.
that can be very complicated. A lot of the federal employees, they want to add up all of their time off that they didn't take for a big cash lump sum. And then there's 5C and there's the different 1.1%. You guys have gone through that?
There's a whole specialization that is required when it comes to federal pension planning. And again, with being so close to Wright Pat Air Force Base, we were forced into becoming kind of experts in that area, looking at, you know, your TSP, your thrift savings plan, looking at the different pension benefits. They also have an amazing healthcare plan, and that turns into basically a supplement with Medicare. So there's a lot of different considerations. If you are in that federal situation where you're like, I don't know if you understand my situation, we do.
Right. Folks, you can get your own retirement blueprint right now just by calling the phone number on the screen. So whether you have a pension, and if you are, you're in the fortunate 13 to 14% here in the United States. But for most folks out there, you have to create your own private pension. How do you do that? You use the assets that you've created in your 401ks, your IRAs, along with Social Security planning. So Social Security isn't something you just turn on because you decide to retire that month. Maybe you want to let the Social Security grow, or maybe you do turn on Social Security and let your investments grow. What's important is that you sit down with somebody who does this kind of retirement planning every single day in their offices. And you can get your own no-cost retirement blueprint. You can claim it right now. Call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. We have teammates standing by right now to schedule your appointment with Tim Lofton. More of these most important retirement planning questions when we get back right after this message from Tim himself.
The mistake that we see with a lot of people coming into our office is that they made a projection of how much money they were going to need maybe 20 years ago, and they didn't account for inflation in those figures. The average retiree is going to spend at least 20 years in retirement. That means that the cost of living is going to double at least one time. For example, if somebody 20 years ago said, I'm going to need $40,000 for my investments in retirement, that number is only worth $20,000 now. And so they actually needed to make sure they were looking for $80,000 if $40,000 net was their number back then. So as we're looking at the income needed in retirement, we have to have a plan in place that's going to double our income over that same period, or we're going to have to reduce our lifestyle, which is not what we worked all our lives for. Those are the types of things that we try and help clients with as they're planning out their future retirement to make sure that taxes and inflation are covered in those projections. If taxes and inflation are keeping you up at night, give us a call. Sit down, let us do a complimentary review with you and design your very own retirement blueprint. It's our trademark process that we've designed over the last 30 years to help you retire and stay retired. Do you own a business? Or maybe you have real estate, like investment properties or apartments. Here's my question. What happens if there's an accident and you get sued? I'm not an attorney, and I'm not here to talk to you about lawsuits. What I'm here to do is to tell you how you can protect what you've worked so hard for. That is what asset protection is. And we do it in our office with our estate planning attorneys. We talk about things like LLCs, making sure that you have a trust that will protect you in the event that something happens. If this or anything else like this has been on your to-do list, give us a call today. Let us take a look at what you're currently doing and see if we can make it better. 855-684-3485, or you can scan the QR code below and schedule your very own complimentary review. Let us make sure that your tomorrow is protected.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. You know, we've wanted to remind people that we are an interactive show. You can do something right now. Folks, open up your phone to the camera function right now, and then you can bring it down. I'm gonna try, oh, see, look at it. I found it, Tim.
Wow,
it's right there.
That is impressive.
And when you open up it to the camera and click on it using that QR code, you can go and schedule your own retirement blueprint right now. It's right there for you on the landing page. We have other pieces from media that we've done, from radio and television, if you've missed some of the other segments we've done. But more importantly, schedule that meeting. You can do that. We're going to keep talking for another 10 minutes here, but it's an interactive show. Use that QR code. Open up to the camera function, click on it, schedule your own appointment right now. Tim, let's continue to talk about some of the most important retirement planning questions.
Right.
This one actually, it kind of bothers me. What is your risk tolerance?
Yes.
How does somebody know how to define their risk tolerance? Do we do this with a number or a dollar amount?
They don't.
I looked at the markets, it put me in a bad mood. I don't have good risk tolerance. How do you define it?
Well, and I love the fact that the industry standard out there is still this. Spike, on a scale from 1 to 10, where would you put yourself in the world of risk, with 1 being safe and 10 being aggressive?
It depends on what you're talking about.
Well,
Are you talking about
number?
money? You're talking about me skiing.
No,
if it's skiing, I'm terribly dangerous.
Yes.
But if it's my money, I'm probably somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
But so does that mean I'm a 5?
So you're a 5, okay? And I'm probably a 7. Do you know what my 7 means?
No.
Because I don't know what your 5 means. That's the problem. And so what happens is that people sit in the office with their advisor. The advisor says scale 1 to 10. They throw out a number, and he writes it down and says, okay, and then starts asking another question. And I'm like, how do you know what in the world that even means? In our office, we use a software program called Riskalyze, and it's real simple. It uses speed limit signs from 1 to 100. And you say, well, Tim, that sounds like just a different version of what you just said. No, it doesn't, because the next step is it takes your portfolio, the exact way it's invested today, and tells you how it did in 2008. Do you remember 08?
Yeah.
In
I think we all do.
2013, which was a good one, and it literally shows you what it would have gone up or down in those periods, what you own. That's how you define risk tolerance. It doesn't matter the percentages. If I said, it went down 10%, you're like, well, that doesn't sound bad. If I say it went down $200,000, there's a different reaction there. And so being able to give people a starting point, here's where your risk is, in a way they can understand it, so that when we talk about a shift or a pivot from that number, you know what it means. That's what risk tolerance should look like. That is not what it looks like in this industry.
Now, we got to build these Legos on top of each other because we've talked about the risk tolerance, that we do need to take some risk because of longevity. We need to make sure that we have some growth, but we want to protect some of our assets. And you always talk about giving jobs to the money. Can you talk about how we separate out perhaps different, portions, buckets, platforms, sleeves? How do we separate things that some have growth, but that we don't lose sleep at night because it's exposed to the markets?
Well, we lose sleep at night because of volatility. And when I say volatility, listen, volatility is up and down. But most people think of volatility only as down. That's what causes that sleep at night. And it doesn't even have to have a situation where the market went down. You can just have a fear of it happening. When we figure out and look at volatility, most people will tell us, I'm worried about it because how it'll impact my income. That's the jobs to the money. The part that we have set aside for income is going to have no volatility. That means no loss of sleep at night with that bucket. The bucket that's left over, that's growth. Now, inside that bucket, that's where we start talking about risk tolerance. You know, we may have different sleeves in there with different levels of growth and different levels of risk, but the primary reason that that bucket can be growth driven is because the income bucket is figured out.
Now, if we're still working, again, I like to go back to this 1 to 2 years away from retirement,
Right.
Important decisions. If you are in a target date fund in your retirement account at work, are you not as worried about risk because you know the target date fund is reducing that risk for you, Tim?
Well, we have a fake sense of security. It's almost like we've been thrown a life preserver, but we grab hold of the life preserver and it still sinks to the bottom of the ocean. The target date fund is a tool. I see it misused more often than not. People get too conservative too early. They don't have the growth component. They're not giving jobs to the money. They're just doing a different version of asset allocation.
Right. So with that retirement account, we're a year or two away. We want to make sure that we're getting it reviewed. We don't want to completely go to cash. We don't want to stop contributing it to it. But can you have it actively managed or at least reviewed before you get that year or two before retirement?
Absolutely. And the reason is most likely a year or two before retirement, I'm over 59 and a half. I have access to roll that money over to my IRA even though I'm still working there. It's called an in-service distribution. It's totally allowed. It's not taxable. It doesn't stop you from contributing to the plan, but it allows you to do exactly what we're talking about.
Tim, the retirement blueprint. This is what we can do for all of our viewers out there. This is why Tim does the program. This is why Tim does his weekly radio show, the live events. We want to help you with your retirement planning. Right now, it starts with a phone call. We'll have folks still standing by, even though the show is wrapping up, to take your phone call and schedule your appointment. You can claim your own retirement blueprint right now. Income planning, tax planning, estate planning, healthcare planning, all wrapped up into one plan for you. Call right now. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.